GT4 European Series is at the Nürburgring this weekend. The cars ready to make their way round out onto the grid, ready for the first 60-minute race of the weekend. It is a series where you can share a car if you wish. Some drivers do, others elect to go solo, and everybody will have to make a mandatory pit stop between 25 and 35 minutes of the race. It's going to be a rolling start, the cars working their way to the grid, and it's a nice mix of cars as well in this championship. You've got BMWs, you've got Porsche, Aston Martin and Chevrolet Camaros as well. A number of Ginetta G50s as well can be found on the grid, one of which makes its way up coming out of the Coca-Cola curve now. In fact, the cars from the now defunct Italian Ginetta G50 Cup have found a happy home in the GT4 European Series and have on occasions been race winners this year. Pole position indeed goes to 24, the Nova Rangoni Enter Ginetta of Stefano Stefanelli, who will start, and Lorenzo Marcucci, who will do the second stint in that car. And lining up alongside in 888 is Jesse Antela, who will start, again Ginetta mounted, with Salvador Tinio to do the second stint in the car. Both of them quick, experienced but young drivers. And you can see there what I mean about the mix of cars. The BMWs, perhaps considered sometimes more of a touring car than a GT car, but under GT4 regulations, very much eligible for this. One of the stalwarts of BMW racing, André Grammatico, has one of them. He was racing in French touring cars back in the early 1980s and has been a stalwart racer ever since, and in perfect conditions at the Nürburgring. Despite a forecast of a showery day, there's not been a drop of rain yet. The grid starts now to take shape. 60 minutes it will be, and the championship that has had races this year at Spa, along with Paul Ricard and Misano, has been a busy series, a successful championship as well, and with the efforts being put in by the organisers, more and more cars, one hopes to continue to join the series, because there's a huge long list eligible for GT4 racing. It's just a question of convincing everybody to come out and take part in the championship. Misano was an event which saw victory in the first race to Alessandro Bonaccini Foglio and Manuel Lasani. Bertus Sanders and Jörg Wiebahn won the second. Bernhard van Oranje and Ricardo van der Ende won both at Zandvoort. They won the first one at Spa as well, and then Marcel Nuren and Jan Joris Verheul won the second, with Salvador Tinio and Jesse Antela winning the first Paul Ricard race, and Bertus Sanders and Jörg Wiebahn once again coming out victorious in the second at the very, very popular circuits in the south of France. Jörg Wiebahn and Bertus Sanders with their Porsche 997 shape 911 in GT4 trim. So the grid lines up, mandatory pit stops, but not everybody will do a driver change. So in some respects, if you can go solo, you might be better placed if you're a quick driver, because the car will run at that one pace throughout the race itself. And the grid with Ginettas at the front have, on the second row, number 10 Jörg Wiebahn starting in the Porsche, and then alongside is the Nova Race Ginetta of Franville Bugliotti, who is another driver who's done quite a lot of racing in his home Argentina in touring cars and single-seaters for a number of years. We've seen him very briefly in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. The third row is where you find the Aston Martin of Matol Racing, with Stefan Retzlaff to start. And there is the pole position car, which is that of Stefanelli and Marcucci. In most cases, it is the amateur driver who will do the first stint, and 90 seconds is going to be the pit stop time that everybody must serve. So it's a regulation pit stop time. So second on the grid, it's going to be Jesse Antela who will go first. Jesse Antela, somebody that we've seen racing in Formula Ford in the UK in the past, but now, after a spell in Formula Renault, turning his attention to GT cars. With the second row of the grid there, Jörg Wiebahn is nominated as going first, although the timing screen tells us that Bertus Sanders is going to be first, and that is the first of the Pucker GT4 cars, therefore eligible for points. The Ginettas in their own Ginetta G50 Cup. And in a moment, the cars will be released away. The 3-minute board shown, so the countdown continues. There is the car, the Ginetta of Franville Bugliotti, the Nova race car. Fourth on the grid for the Argentine driver, and then go back a row and you come to the Stefan Ratzlaff and Henrik Still driven Aston Martin Vantage GT4, and that car in turn will have alongside it the Van Oranje and Van der Ende BMW. There is the Aston Martin, which is Henrik Still and Stefan Ratzlaff. There's another car with confusion over who's going to be the start driver, because the nominations aren't being reflected in what's on the timing screen going into the first race. Bernhard Van Oranje should start in number 1, and again it says Van der Ende will start, so I fear that there's been another discrepancy. It should be the AMs in all the cars, and Van Oranje is the AM. And then number 14 comes next on the grid, which is Manuel Lasagni, and that's easy because he is a soloist. So that's all good. There you can see number 14, which is Manuel Lasagni, who's been very competitive this season, having shared winning cars. He's on his own for the purposes of this race. So in a few moments the cars will be released, and one warming up lap into the rolling start, 77 Ginetta, which is going to be driven by Roberto Gentili, another of the cars from the Italian Ginetta G50 Cup, which slot very nicely into this series, making it a busy grid, which is now being cleared, and then we will shortly be ready to go. So this is how the grid lines up, with the Marcucci Stefanelli car on pole position, Antilla and Tinio alongside. The second row of the grid, Viban and Sanders, with Franville Bugliotti alongside. Then it is the Aston of Stefan Ratzlaff and Henrik Still alongside Van Oranje in the BMW. Manuel Lasagni comes next, alongside him is Luca Mangoni, and then it is Peter Christian Van Oranje lining up alongside Roberto Gentili. The next row of the grid is Eric Behrens lining up alongside Eric Berggren. Marcel Nuren comes next, alongside him is Peter Stocks, then Andre Grammatico a long way back in the BMW. Marcel van Rijswijk comes on the outside of the 8th row ahead of Luc Brahms, and then it is Lisette Brahms who is going to be next on the grid. So the AMs start. So in the majority of cases where you're getting a graphic, it's highlighting the pro driver, but it is the AMs that will start, and therefore the pole position car should have Stefano Stefanelli behind the wheel, because he is the nominated AM. So we'll go with that for the purposes of drivers, and 60 minutes of racing to get underway at the end of this formation lap. So the championship, which has had this season going from Italy to Holland to Belgium to France, now to Germany, and heads to Monza. In fact, after this weekend, it's not a championship up for grabs. It's always delivering some good racing. 007 Aston Martin, we just saw working its way through the shot, and that is the car run by the Alfab racing team that Eric Behrens will start. Daniel Roos, who's been a pole sitter in the Gentleman Trophy in Blancpain before now, the very experienced Swedish driver, still young but very experienced Swedish driver, he will take the car over. And in the case of the two driver cars, you have this fascination of the differing speed of the drivers. Now, Prince, Bernhard Van Oranje, as an example, is no slouch, but Ricardo van der Ende is very much the gun in that car. So any time it loses early on should be made back up again by Ricardo van der Ende in the second part of the race. Another one to watch, undoubtedly, is going to be the number 2 Camaro, I should say, in the hands of Duncan Houseman, because Houseman is very, very quick indeed. He's won the Nurburgring 24 hours in the past, won the gear race repeatedly at Macau. So Duncan Houseman brother of Patrick, multiple Porsche Super Cup champion. Another man to watch in the second part of the race. And in race 2, it will be the pro drivers who will start. So as the cars now work their way up through Schumacher S, there you can see the Porsche in the hands for the first stint of Jörg Wiebahn. 25 minutes is when the pit window opens, so anticipate the AMs to come in early, give way to the pro drivers. The soloists, of course, can split the race rather more evenly. The combination, though, of Jesse Antela and Salvador Tinio is an interesting one, because the Finn and the Spaniard, both comparable drivers, they're both young career racing drivers. There's no obvious pro and am, so evenly matched in pace in that car. There, number 8 BMW is Peter Christian van Oranje, who will hand over to Simon Knapp, who's another driver doing the Blancpain Endurance race this weekend, the iRacing.com Nurburgring 1000 as well as this, so he's busy having to adapt from a GT4 to a GT3 car. But the safety car, or the pace car as it is now, has slowed the field right down, and it's at this part of the circuit that they need to get into the Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. The Ginetta's weaving around at the front of the grid with Stefanelli in the pole car, which has got the yellow mirrors, and the sister car behind in the hands of Jesse Antela. That could well be a threat going down towards the first corner. Behind, Jörg Wiebahn in the Porsche will be one to watch, then Franville Bugliotti. And let's also see, in the case of the BMWs of the Racing Team Holland by Equus Motorsport squad, what sort of time loss there is in the first stint before the real guns get into the cars, namely Van der Ende and Simon Knapp. Pace car peels off. 60 minutes of racing for the GT4 European Series gets underway now. Good start by the white Ginetta of Franville Bugliotti, who was really on his toes on the run down towards the first corner. The field streams down to turn 1, and the Porsche working its way through the pack. Look, Jörg Wiebahn comes up on the outside line. Jesse Antela in the Ginetta breaks very, very late indeed, and there's contact because Ville Bugliotti has been turned around by what looked like the first BMW of Bernhard van Oranje. He will have got a little bit of damage on the front as well. Franville Bugliotti sitting in the middle of the road trying to rejoin. The front row Ginetta's ended up being mugged at the first corner, so up front at the moment is Jörg Wiebahn. In second place looks to have gone the Aston in the hands of Stefan Ratzlaff, and there number 8 BMW works its way through turn 4. Peter Christian van Oranje, who is running in 5th place, but up front Porsche leads Aston, and then it's Ginetta's 3rd, 4th, 5th, so it's 6th for the BMW, 7th indeed for the sister car behind. And Franville Bugliotti trying to sort himself out and get back into the race now, having been turned around at the first corner. Andre Grammatico goes through ahead of the Eric Berggren-driven BMW tucked up behind that he shares with Thomas Fjordbach. But downhill, Jörg Wiebahn is getting away now. He's an experienced driver, competes regularly in the VLN. There you can see number 14 Ginetta trying to shove its way up the inside, which is the red car in the hands of Manuel Lasagni. But for the moment, it looks as though Jesse Antela is able to fend him off, and the battle's developing nicely now for second place, because the Aston Martin just keeping at bay Stefano Stefanelli as they work their way up now to the Warsteiner curve. Jörg Wiebahn's Porsche trying to break away, but a great long line, a whole queue of cars arguing over second place now as they work their way through the Warsteiner curve for the first time. Race leaders work their way uphill then, coming towards the completion of lap 1, and Wiebahn getting away here. He shares the car with Bertus Sanders, and as the race leader turns into the chicane, you can see behind is the Aston Martin. These cars, as will be the case for the Blancpain Endurance Series, use the faster version, the softer version of the chicane. Less stressful on cars and perhaps on drivers as well. So as the leader, Wiebahn, powers his way up towards the line. We've got this long queue for second spot coming through behind, headed by Retzlaff. Then it is Stefanelli in 4th place. Jesse Antela. Down they head in towards turn 1. And round the outside tries to go the first of the pale blue Ginettas from Nova Rangoni. Stefano Stefanelli losing out, I think, because up alongside him now comes Jesse Antela. He does. Antela goes through. So we've had a reversal between the two Ginettas, having their own inter-Nissan contest, of course, because they're in the same team, but they're also within the same class, the same Ginetta Cup. So for the moment, it is Antela who is ahead. The cars work their way up through turn 3. There's Andre Grammatico, but up front, Wiebahn it is who leads the way. Now the red Ginetta in the hands of Manuel Lasagna is another one to watch, because we know that Lasagna is a quick driver, and there is a rather troubled BMW. Now that car, I think, joined in late, and it is Marcel van Rijswijk at the wheel of it, slowly making its way down towards the chicane. It's going to go a lap down, that's for sure, and it may not even, I'm afraid, complete that lap, given its very, very slow pace indeed. It has crawled as far as pit in, there it is. This will be the completion of its first very slow, troubled lap, unfortunately. Coast in, and we've had drama because one of the BMWs is in strife, and it looked as though there might have been an Aston involved in that as well. Let's just check. Which of the Icarus Motorsport cars is it that's off the road? And that is a pretty big coming together, which is going to bring out the safety car, I would have thought, because there's a car in the middle of the road, and the Aston Martin with a rather knocked about driver is the 007 car of Eric Behrens. The safety car is indeed deployed, and it's the Peter Christian van Oranje BMW, we think. So 007 and 8 have got themselves together. We might get a replay of what exactly happened. The medical car has been deployed as well. You saw Eric Behrens a little bit winded and shaken getting out of the car. The safety car will scoop them all up, hopefully in time. Jörg Wiebahn backs off, gets the message, and there's the safety car scrambled quickly. So the race is neutralised. We go to the safety car. There is the troubled 104 BMW in the pit lane, which is the car of Marcel van Rijswijk. Andre de Vries would take over for the second stint if it gets that far, because clearly all is not well. So all of these laps count, of course, within the duration. Safety car deployed, and with the teams hard at work in the pit lane, any gaps drivers have been able to build disappear. So Jörg Wiebahn in the Porsche leads the way. In second place, it is Stefan Retzlaff in the 107 Aston Martin. Third is 888, the Nova Race Ginetta of Jesse Antela. In fourth place is number 24 now, which is the Stefano Stefanelli Ginetta. And then next up comes the red one there in the hands of Manuel Lasagna, and the surviving Icarus Motorsport BMW in the hands of Bernhard van Oranje runs in at sixth spot. And then, of course, because we've had the accident behind, everybody else starts to move up the order. So up into seventh place now comes Luca Magnoni. Into eighth place comes the Roberto Gentili driven Ginetta. Up into ninth place comes the redoubtable Andre Grammatico, and for 10th place now it is going to be Marcel Nuren, the Camaro. Replay of the start. Keep an eye on the orange and blue Porsche, because the way that Jörg Wiebahn got off the line was very impressive indeed. He just kept on finding gaps. But have a look at the second blue Ginetta, because Jesse Antela oh so nearly hit him, but the one that was tagged was Franville Bugliotti, and somehow I think everybody went through, apart from the Marcel Rijswijk BMW, which glanced off the Ginetta, and that is why it was slow. Have a look from another angle. There just was not the room and contact between the two cars. The team manager of the number one BMW is going to go and see the race director immediately. So, of course, they have closed-circuit television in race control as well as the live pictures, and it could be, having looked at that, they feel that Bernhard van Oranje has got a case to... Bernhard van Oranje has a case to answer for something. Now, is that for a yellow flag infringement or something off the start? It was the sister car of his brother Peter Christian that was involved in the incident. But number one to go to the race director immediately. 53 minutes of the race remain. The cars working their way towards the incident zone. This does not look good, does it, down in the pit lane, I'm afraid, for Marcel van Rijswijk or Andre de Vries, as the team continues to work on the car. So the field heads uphill. Wiebahn is the man in the lead, ahead of Retzlaff, Antela, Stefanelli, Lasagna, van Oranje to round out the top six. There's one of the very, very smart Camaros, number 2, which is the Luke Brahms Duncan Haasman car. Now this is exactly when the pro drivers want the safety car situation to come, because it means their their slower driver is losing less time, and it means they've got less work to do in the second stint of the race as the field pours over the line. But with two damaged cars and a second race for them today, one questions whether we're going to see the Aston Martin out later on. The BMW possibly didn't look as badly damaged as the car of poor Eric Behrens did. And it's a real shame that we've lost that, because his co-driver Daniel Roos is a very quick driver indeed, so really disappointing that we've lost that from the race altogether. So as the cars work their way through the Mercedes arena, working their way down towards turn 3, the incident between 007 and car 8 under investigation, not surprising given that they were the two eliminated. But I'm interested to see exactly how it all happened, and it is the AM's stint. Normally the AM's perhaps a bit more restrained, but frustrating that we've lost those two cars. But as soon as the track is clear, then the race can get underway. But you saw that clearly it had been a big hit, because Eric Behrens was rather winded, a bit sore when he got out of the car. There is Luke Brahms, one of the guys instrumental in this championship, with Duncan Houseman, his co-driver, ready to take over. We've had the first 10 minutes of the race completed, albeit behind the safety car, and the field being headed still, of course, by Jörg Wiebahn, who's an experienced driver. He doesn't just take part in the GT4 series, but in the VLN as well, and the 24-hour series. It's a very odd place for that accident to have happened, isn't it, coming out of the Dunlop curve. And clearly it has been a big whack, but a very unusual place to find the cars. The BMW driving away from the scene, but it would have lost at least one lap, possibly two. The car in the hands of Peter Christian van Oranje, who is doing his best to deliver the car back to the team to see if they can do any work on it, and if they can go back out in the race, it acts as a test session for later on today. So a rather bruising start. Franville Bugliotti, I hadn't told you, did of course get going again and runs 15th, and is helped by the safety car because he's got less in terms of gaps to make up, and Franville Bugliotti is a soloist, so the car can run at that pace all the way through. Should be able to make up some ground in this first stint of the race. So the race leaders working their way up to the chicane. But I think the incident is going to take a few more laps to clear, isn't it? So Jörg Wiebahn it is who leads the way from Stefan Retzlaff in second place, moving into what you might call proper racing, because he has been competing in the Nordschleife-based RCN championship, which is really based around what I suppose you would translate as a regularity run, where it's all about setting consistent lap times and smoothness rather than pure race pace. There is the Peter Christian BMW being retrieved. The RCN, just to go back to it, always attract lots of star names for the 24-hour weekend because they get some extra mileage in. So suddenly owners of cars decide to have a gun hero as their co-driver. And it's a very strange-looking entry list for that round, but it's there that Stefan Retzlaff has come from. His co-driver, Henrik Still, a VLN competitor. And then in third place, Jesse Antela. So Formula Ford in Finland, his home country, and then in the UK, then into Formula Renault, and now into the GT cars. Another driver realising that it's so difficult to try to make a career out of single-seater racing, that the way to go could well be GT cars. There's Andre, who, if you go back to 1983, you find in the French Touring Car Championship, and Andre Gramatico, perhaps not quite as quick as he was, but still a competitive driver with the Espace Bienvenue BMW. And the retirement of Prince Peter Christian van Oranje, sadly the third incident of the season. The pace is there, but has been involved in a number of scrapes across the season. Whether this was down to him or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, we don't know, but very frustrating. The car, from what we've just seen of it being hoiked away, not that badly damaged. One would hope that repairs can be effected for the second race, but I'm not quite as optimistic about the prospects for the Aston Martin, sad to say. Having said that, a tweet has been offered from BMW saying the car looks like it might be out for the weekend. The damage, perhaps to the bodywork, not all that bad, but it's what you can't see underneath that could be the real sticking point. And the team will have a look and try and sort it for race 2, but maybe they're not as optimistic as I am. field streams through them. Plenty more BMWs in the race, with places to be gained on the restart. And as the cars turn their way up towards the Warstein S, still the marshals are hard at work down at the bottom of the hill at the Dunlop curve, sorting out the incident. There is the Lisette Brahms BMW. You just saw the blue BMW turning through that she shares with Rob Severs, who's another quick driver. So Porsche leads from Aston Martin and Ginetta, but it's all rather academic at the moment with the safety car being out, and we're getting ever closer, of course, to the pit window opening. We're not there yet, but if the safety car stays out for too much longer, then we'll be heading towards it. It's the Lamborghini safety car that's used, and it comes now towards the final corner. Frustrating in a sense, this, for the AMs, because they get very little time behind the wheel. Very little racing time behind the wheel, that is. They've had, I suppose, really, what, 2 laps, that's it, before the safety car came out. So Jörg Wiebahn comes over the timing line as the race leader. Everybody now weaving around to maintain warmth in the tyres. Hankook rubber it is on which everybody runs in this championship. And that's turn 1 as the cars work their way through the Mercedes arena. The safety car will be in at the end of this lap, so we're going to go back to racing at the end of this, which is lap 6. So good work has been done by the incident team to clear everything out of the way, and that's going to give us, by the end of the lap, something like 8 minutes or so before the pit window opens. So probably just about 4 laps, if that, for the AMs before they have to bail for the pit lane. Safety car in this time then. Jörg Wiebahn will be on his toes. There's the Aston Martin that lies second in the hands of Stefan Retzlaff. He will give way to Henrik Still. All of the cars, in theory, should go quicker in the second stint, apart from perhaps the soloists, but of course the fuel load is coming down. But the situation that we have now is set to change, I think. Cars to look for: Marcel Nuren, running in 10th place, will give way to the quick Jan-Joris Verheul. And in 13th place is where you find Luke Brahms, Duncan Heisman to take over from him. So that's another car that should make some progress before the end of the race. So the safety car team get ready to peel into the pit lane. The drivers get ready to charge over the timing line and go back to full race conditions. And the teams in the pit lane start to get ready in anticipation of the pit window opening. So here they come, working their way now up towards the chicane. Everybody is bunched right up, and what Jörg Wiebahn wants to do is accelerate and then have a nice clear run, so he can keep accelerating. He doesn't want to go and then slow. There, lower down the order, is number 3, which is the Marcel Nuren Jan-Joris Verheul Chevrolet Camaro GT4, the V8 racing team, sister car to that of Brahms and Heisman. So both of those should be making progress in the second stint of the race, that's for sure. And the Porsche it is. It looks oh so different with that rear wing compared to a GT3 spec 911. Same basic shape though. Leads the way up towards the chicane. And it's been a very, very slow final lap by the safety car, this, hasn't it? But the field stacked up behind work their way to the chicane. And we should go racing this time around as into the chicane they come. The safety car will dive for the pit lane and we'll go back to full green flag conditions, heading for 6.5 or so minutes, I suppose, to the pit window opening. Right, Jörg Wiebahn is on his toes. Stefan Retzlaff is on the curbs as the cars power away. Down they come through the right-hander of the Coca-Cola curve. Straight away, 3rd place, Jesse Antler is on his toes to have a go at Retzlaff. Jörg Wiebahn then controls the pace. He comes over the timing line and tries to drive away from the opposition as they come down then towards turn 1. heading into the corner. The Porsche leads the way by 0.6 of a second, and for second and third side by side on the outside line is Jesse Antler, but the inside is claimed by the Aston Martin that then runs deep into the corner. Stefan Retzlaff gets onto the curb. Jesse Antler tries to go round the outside in the Ginetta, but the Aston Martin isn't going to be easy to pass, I wouldn't have thought, with all of its grunt through the corners. But Jesse Antler, with his perhaps greater racecraft, tries to buy back into this. Then behind them, you've got the pole man, Stefano Stefanelli, and there, look, the red Ginetta fifth in the hands of Manuel Lassagne as the cars work their way now out of the Mercedes arena. And once again, trying to get away up front is the leading Porsche. Jörg Wiebahn it is who leads the way as the cars head downhill. Sideways there, tyres not yet back up to temperature, but Wiebahn trying to build this lead. Downhill they plunge. Battle is on for second place, and that's going to help Wiebahn here. He's going to be able to build the advantage before Bertus Sanders takes over the car. For second and third places, though, down they come to the Dunlop curve. The Aston Martin hangs on to the pace for the moment, runs a little bit wide up the curb now to try to level with him. Jesse Antler still chasing Stefan Retzlaff. And these two not shaking off, of course, therefore the fourth place car in the hands of Stefano Stefanelli. The Schumacher S, they come up towards the Warsteiner curve, and Porsche leads Aston, leads Ginetta first, second and third, but now the race leader, namely Jörg Wiebahn, is with a lighter fuel load doing good sectors. Despite that slide in sector one, he's done the absolute best of the race in the first sector. He slides up onto the curb again, coming out of the corner. Now towards the Ad Van Bogen he comes, and the lead is certainly building, that is for sure. Second and third and fourth and fifth still in a queue behind him. But really, it's what's going to happen between the quicker drivers in the second stint that we're looking for now as the cars come out of the chicane. Under braking, looks like the Coca-Cola curve lead gap has come right down. So Jörg Wiebahn's advantage is being gobbled into now by a hard-charging Stefan Retzlaff, who is behind him. Over the timing line they come then, working their way down to turn one. And now hard on the brakes is the Aston Martin, still second. Once again, out of turn one, yes, Antler challenges, but he's given the outside line, so it doesn't work. He actually loses a length or so, slots back in behind as the cars now work their way through that long sequence, turn two and turn three. But Jörg Wiebahn's advantage has disappeared. Right on his tail now is Retzlaff. Has the Porsche got a problem? Where has the time gone to? He was so quick in the first sector, and then everybody else has eaten into that deficit as the team looks on. The Pro Sport Performance team now perhaps getting a bit more concerned, because you can see that it's now three for the race lead, whereas at this part of the circuit a lap ago the leading car was getting away. Now very definitely it's a different situation, and Stefan Retzlaff in second place looks like he's lining up to have a go as they come down towards the right hand of the Dunlop curve. Right with them as well in third spot, Jesse Antler. But now Retzlaff is doing his best to find a way through and also defend that second place. Now can Wiebahn respond? We've got 4 minutes or so before the window opens. Wiebahn up onto the curb as well. Jesse Antler quick in the Ginetta, trying to get himself onto the tail of the Aston Martin, and he's also bringing with him Stefano Stefanelli. So the four leading cars now pretty much as one. They're all bunching up once again as they turn their way out of the Warsteiner sequence of corners. And Antler on the throttle, perhaps a little bit in advance of Retzlaff there, so the Ginetta comes out slightly quicker. Now, is this going to give Wiebahn the opportunity to extend the advantage? If it is, it's only slightly. Third and fourth are two pale blue Ginettas running together, the Nova Rangoni and Nova Race cars. Now Retzlaff thinks about attacking Wiebahn. They can pit at the end of this lap, no, end of 2 more laps, I think. It's going to be the pit window opening, but again Wiebahn just seems to struggle coming out of the Coca-Cola curve, and he can't get away. I know the Aston Martin has got loads of grunt in a straight line, but certainly now it's a very different situation from that we had earlier. Jörg Wiebahn leads the way, second Stefan Retzlaff, and he's under attack again as Jesse Antler comes up on the outside line there, diving down towards turn one, can't find a way through. Lassagne in 5th place, the red G50 now just falling away a little bit, and then behind there's a big gap, isn't there, before the 6th place car, which is Bernhard van Oranje with Ricardo van der Ende to take that over in the second stint. That is certainly going to be one to watch as well. I've talked about the Camaro is being cast to look for in the hands of Hoyle and Heisman, but certainly Van der Ende will be a man to watch. And there in the background is the rather sorry Aston Martin being brought back to the pits on the flatbed, so I think its day is done, sadly, after the damage sustained early in this first of the 2 races, 2 in the same day this weekend, given the timetabling for them. V-Bahn down at the Dunlop curve. We're approaching the pit window. This race is building up nicely, because when you get the second drivers in the cars, it'll be a very different look to the race. Down to the pit lane, drivers now start to get ready. Bertus Sanders will get ready to take over the leading car. We'll have to do quite a bit of work. There is the 3rd place, Jesse Antela Ginetta again riding the curbs. So Jörg V-Bahn not able to get away. Now remember, everybody has to make the pit stop time the same, 90 seconds. But if you get it wrong and lose time, then you can certainly lose a place. And if you get it wrong and go short and have to serve a drive-through or a stop-go to make up the deficit, then again, you can certainly lose on the pit stop. So it's a very crucial part of the race. Now look at this, the 3 leaders absolutely as one. Up the inside, look, Stefan Retzlaff can't find a way through, slots back in behind. But they're not at the window opening yet. They've got another lap to run before they can think about that. Retzlaff attacking and defending at the same time, doing a very good job of so doing. And Jesse Antela is right up behind him then, as the cars now work their way over the line. Here they come. And this time around, the Porsche just slightly in advance, because Stefan Retzlaff is busy defending that 2nd place from Jesse Antela. He goes for the inside line down at turn 1, not so much to attack the Porsche, but try and defend from the Ginetta, and also Stefanelli has a go. A look up the inside of Jesse Antela for 3rd. Didn't work for him though, but it shows that Stefanelli has not given up in this race either. Franville Bugliotti, incidentally, 13th. I would have thought, given the safety car period, he could have made a few more spots up after it than that, but anyway, progress is being made. Let's see how he fares come the second part of the race. The pit window will be open in 20 seconds time as of now, and so expect a whole rush of people to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap. There's the second wave of cars, headed by Prins Bernhard van Oranje. He has got a long queue behind him, headed at the moment by the Ginetta of Luca Magnoni. Right, the window is open, the fight's on for 3rd, and because the fight is on for 3rd, suddenly the 2 leaders have been released, and there, look, to the inside line goes Stefanelli, runs right up alongside the Ginetta in the hands of Jesse Antela, puts him up on the curb. Antela leans on him. Now Manuel Lasagni tries to buy into this as well in the red car, but he can't get between the 2 blue G50s ahead of him. Change for 3rd place, way up over the curb and then sideways, Jesse Antela. But it looks as though, having gone through, Stefano Stefanelli will be able to extend the advantage a little. Having said that, they're going to pit at the end of the lap. Antela's car looking very nervous all of a sudden. He's trying to hustle everything out of it. But now, look, Stefan Retzlaff doesn't have to worry about what's going on behind. He's on the tail of the leading Porsche as the cars now work their way up towards the Ad Van Bogen and then towards the chicane. Is he going to be able to make a run up on the inside? It's not that easy to overtake at the softer chicane, because there isn't really the slower first part as there is on the other chicane's configuration. In comes the leader, whereas staying out for another lap is Stefan Retzlaff. Intriguingly, the Ginettas all stay out as well, but Jörg V-Bahn decides that he is going to give way as soon as he can to Bertus Sanders. In he comes. So that does now give us the Aston Martin in the lead. Down the pit straight comes Stefan Retzlaff. Others that have just come in, incidentally, include Van Oranje and also Marcel Nuren. So Prins Bernhard van Oranje will give way to Ricardo van der Ende. There, however, is Bertus Sanders getting into the Porsche. Out on track, the race leader has become the Aston Martin in the hands of Stefan Retzlaff. Now his advantage over Stefanelli, 9/10 of a second. Is he therefore going to be able to increase that, or can Stefanelli get onto his tail? Let's see. There's the very busy pit lane now. As I say, you've got the Porsche, BMW and Camaro in, also just in the blue BMW there, which is Lisette Brahms to give way to Rob Seves. Also in has come 103, which is Peter Stocks to give way to Koen de Wit. We've had Luke Brahms in for Houseman, and I think for the moment that's just about everybody of note. 90 seconds, which is of course the best part of a lap. So they will, in some cases, go a lap down. They'll gain a lap back again, all being well. when the leaders cycle through for their pit stops, which won't be that far away, 10 minutes narrow window. Away goes Bertus Sanders now in the number 10 Porsche. This is for third place you're looking at. It's Jeti Antela just ahead of Manuel Lasagni. Back into the race goes the very smart 911 GT4 in the hands of Bertus Sanders. Careful not to drive over that white line, for which you get a penalty. And then into the race, having to quickly work out what track and car state are like. Now that he's been released from behind the Porsche, Stefan Retzlaff is absolutely flying. He's done the best of anybody in the first sector, working his way towards the final curve. In from third place now comes Antela to give way to Salvador Tinio. And Tinio himself, who's raced in Clios and GTs and the One Make Mini Championship, he's another rapid driver. He will be one to watch, I think, as you just saw pretty happy Jörg Wiebahn, work done. Right then, we have got now still circulating 15 cars, and the leader is there, the Aston Martin that runs in the GT4 guest class, Stefan Retzlaff at the wheel of it. Behind is the leading Ginetta Cup class car, Stefano Stefanelli, and there, back on track, is the Sanders Wiebahn Porsche, currently classified in 10th place, given that others have made pit stops as well, but he's not out of the hunt, of course, far from it, because everybody has to serve a pit stop for the same amount of time. Now, of those that have made a pit stop, you've seen Bertus Sanders. There is Ricardo van der Ende in the surviving Ecos Motorsport BMW, and behind him is number 3, now in the hands, the V8 Racing Camaro of Jan Joris Verheul, and he's another quick driver. So van der Ende and Verheul, 2 to keep an eye to here. So also is Bertus Sanders, and it's their progress up towards the front and their relative pace that's going to be fascinating over the remainder of this race, which has got 30 minutes still to run. So the race leaders head up now towards the completion of lap number 12. These cars heading up towards the completion of their 11th lap, really. So they're some way behind after the pit stops. They're going to be 11th and 12th. Van der Ende ahead here of Jan Joris Verheul. Intriguing battle, BMW versus Camaro. Perhaps the BMW a bit more nimble. The Camaro you would expect to be better with all of its grunt in a straight line. And is Jan Joris Verheul going to be quick enough to have a go? He's done the best of anybody in the last sector. He goes to the outside line. There is one of the Ginettas rejoining the race. We'll come to in a moment, because side by side for position going through turn 1. Van der Ende staves off the attack at the moment of Verheul. So these two still squabbling. The other car, Robert Gentili, has just finished its pit stop. That's the red Ginetta that came out of the pits. As here are the race leaders, they've now done 12 laps, and Stefan Retzlaff stays out then, leads the way, 0.9 of a second up. We've got another one in, which is Manuel Lasagni down the pit lane. Also coming in now is Andre Grammatico, and also down the pit road has come the BMW in the hands of Erik Berggren to give way to Thomas Feuerbach. There it is, number 101. The Sorg Rennsport car, so Erik Berggren to get out, Feuerbach to get in. Now this is the charging Bertus Sanders, who after his pit stop has rejoined with the charging Salvador Tinio right up behind him. So for the two leading pit stoppers, in real terms, that gap has come right down, hasn't it? You can see how the Porsche has lost ground, because 888 at one point was running down in third position, having been overtaken, and now he's right back onto the tail of the Porsche. So Bertus Sanders perhaps not running as quickly yet in his stint as he needs to. Right up behind him, Salvador Tinio looks for a way through, goes to the inside line, diving into the Coca-Cola curve. Is there room? Rides the curb a little bit on the inside, does Tinio. One make saloon car background and also a spell in the NASCAR Euro Series means he's a pretty forceful driver. Comes over the line, so Tinio then now running on the back of Bertus Sanders for 8th and 9th places down towards turn 1. Now the next car to watch has become the number 2 Camaro in the hands of Duncan Houseman, because he's done the absolute best of anybody in the first sector. Still more pit stops to cycle through, including the race leader who comes in now. So down the pit lane comes Stefan Retzlaff to give way to Henrik Still. Also in is the second place car, look, which is Stefanelli to give way this time to Lorenzo Marcucci, and also in as well comes Manuel Lasagni. So the pit lane becomes very busy for the three leading cars. There is Triple Eight. Salvador Tinio still hustling on. 107. Driver change being affected. Out gets Retzlaff, in gets Still. And here is Bertus Sanders, who has got, of course, Salvador Tinio up behind him. He's still pushing on, trying to bring down that gap in real terms. They both need to get near the start and finish line before those cars are released from their pit stop in order to have any chance at all. And it's not just these two relative to those in the pits, it's also those that have already made a stop coming back into the mix as well, such as Van der Ende, Verheul and Duncan Huisman as well. Right, 107 came in as the race leader. That car's ready to go. Change for position, because up on the inside, Salvador Tinio tries to level here with Bertus Sanders. He's got the inside line for the Ad Van Bogen, and through he goes. Salvador Tinio takes up the place. The change happens. The Ginetta goes ahead of the Porsche. Bertus Sanders looks like he's struggling a bit in this second stint. Wiebahn was losing pace anyway, but Sanders not being able to turn the race around for that team. Those that have just made a pit stop blast back into the race, so we'll get a proper idea now of the gaps. Look, here we come. So it's going to be Henrik Still who comes out ahead. He's being chased by the Lorenzo Marcucci Ginetta, and they will be first and second. Manuel Lasagni is third in the red Ginetta, but Salvador Tinio is going to attack him on the outside. Lasagni just hangs on to third. Fourth then is Tinio, and fifth is the car that led early on, which is now Bertus Sanders. And look behind, sixth and seventh, it is Van der Ende now, with Jan Joris Verheul right up behind him, and they're closing fast. Tinio attacks Lasagni, can't find a way through. Bertus Sanders staying with them for the moment. The cars accelerate their way downhill once again. So you've got the top two who managed to hang on to the advantage. Third, delaying himself, the red Ginetta Manuel Lasagni, by having to defend, and they're sixth and seventh, and those are the two to watch really, because Van der Ende and Verheul are longer into their stints. They are also some of the best drivers in the championship. Now, how is Duncan Huisman getting on? He's doing absolute best sectors. Change for the lead is imminent, because up the inside now, and does indeed take the lead, Lorenzo Marcucci down at the Dunlop curve. So the car that was on pole position, thanks to his qualifying efforts perhaps, goes now up into the lead of the race, and the Aston drops back into second spot. Third, fourth, fifth, here they are. Manuel Lasagni ahead of Salvador Tinio, and then in fifth place it's Bertus Sanders. But what about Van der Ende, who is currently there in sixth spot? Can he find a way into contention as well? The last lap that Van der Ende did was a 2:09, but we haven't really seen a proper flying lap out of the three leading drivers, because they've only just got into their stint. So straight away, Lorenzo Marcucci is on his toes to go through into the lead of the race. The leading four as one pretty much. Once again, it's the Porsche that's being dropped, and up the inside goes Lasagni, and he turns Henrik Still out of his way. Tinio goes up to second. Lasagni delays himself, and in the gravel at the last corner is Henrik Still. And I think Lasagni has damaged his own car. He has. Look, you can see the front of the Ginetta's got a big bite taken out of it. Big frustration on the pit wall. Stefan Retzlaff is not at all amused about that. The bite a bit, though, because Manuel Lasagni has come off badly. There, look, the charging Van der Ende and Jan Joris Verheul working together rather than squabbling and delaying each other, trying to hit the front. There is also the other flying car, the Camaro of Duncan Huisman. 23 minutes to go, but the Aston Martin is still stuck in the gravel on the outside of the last corner. There is Manuel Lasagni trying to limp on in the Ginetta. There is the car that he drove into, the much heavier Aston Martin. If you're going to drive into anything, and Aston's not a clever thing to hit, because they're big, solid, strong cars, of course, and it's now in the gravel. Now, is that going to be another safety car? Looking to see a snatch vehicle is on its way. Let's just have another look at what happened, because Lasagni thinks about a gap. He goes for the inside, still turns into the corner. Either way, the Aston is the one that comes off worse. It's in the gravel and potentially out of the race. Lasagni has damage. Can he carry on? and the snatch vehicle is on its way now to the Aston Martin. If it can be brought back onto the road and rejoin, well, there's a chance it can continue, albeit a lap down. But Manuel Lasagni's front left corner a bit dog-eared, isn't it? So what that now gives us is a very different situation. Ginetta's first and second. So it is Lorenzo Marcucci leading, Salvador Tinio. And then for third place now, Bertus Sanders has got himself back into contention there, look, in the Porsche. But behind, who's going to be fourth? It is Van der Ende, still ahead of Jan Joris Verheul, and the Ginetta is heading for the pit lane. You won't be surprised to learn that that incident's under investigation as well. Lasagni backs it right off, so Roberto Gentili will come past him amongst others. Luca Magnoni will go through as well. So, Ricardo van der Ende last time did the car's best lap of the race, a 2.8. Those ahead were lapping admittedly in traffic in the 2.10s. There is still a chance that the number 1 BMW can score a race victory. What about Franville Bugliotti's Ginetta in terms of making up more progress? He goes through there, look, gains one more spot. Leaders come through, but now 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds for the top 5. 4 seconds covers the top 4, which takes you to Van der Ende. 4.5 takes you to number 3 as the 2 race leaders run side by side once again. And it is Marcucci who hangs on to the advantage, Tinio right with him, and because they're holding each other up, they're allowing Van der Ende and Verheul, and indeed Huisman, to close right up as well. Lasagni is pitted, by the way, in the red dog-eared Ginetta. There it is. What can they do to get him back into the race? Still 21 minutes, just under, remain, and look at the BMW there in 4th place. Ricardo van der Ende looking ever more menacing. He's bringing Jan Joris Verheul with him. What's the gap back to Duncan Huisman? It's just under at 4.5 seconds back to him as well. So he's still charging on and looking to try and get past more Ginettas. And with 20 minutes to go, he could yet do it as well. He could be up in that leading group. So down to the Dunlop curve. This is lap 16. The race, whoops, all over the curb goes Salvador Tinio. I was about to say the race is being led by Lorenzo Marcucci. It is, but very nearly the Ginetta behind dropped the plot. Van der Ende keeping at bay the Camaro, Jan Joris Verheul, who's been quite content just to sit behind Van der Ende, work through the traffic as a pair. Towards the end of the race, the squabbles might come. Through they go, out of the Warsteiner curve. And now the run up towards the Ad van Bogen. You can see how evenly matched the 2 Nova Rangoni and Nova Race Ginettas are, running as one effectively for the race lead. It's Lorenzo Marcucci who has the advantage at the moment, but making a move to the inside line and getting the race lead is Salvador Tinio up the inside, clips the curb, gets sideways, runs out wide, and up the inside comes Bertus Sanders. 3 wide into this corner, ain't going to work. In the middle of it is Marcucci. 3 abreast, does work, amazing. The Porsche on the inside, back into the lead in the hands of Bertus Sanders, and the 2 Ginettas are still side over the line. Here they come. It is Sanders ahead of Marcucci, ahead of Tinio, but Van der Ende is now right with them in the BMW in 4th place. Marcucci hangs on a second. Here comes Verheul up round the outside of the Camaro. 5 cars now in a line for the race lead. You see how the different pace of drivers brings other cars back into the mix. And we have a drive-through penalty being given to Luca Magnoni, who is not in this leading battle. Admittedly, he's 9th, but he gets a drive-through penalty for a yellow flag infringement, overtaking under the yellow flag, and so Magnoni has to come and serve a drive-through penalty. Right, here are the leading cars, and Van der Ende gives a really good run up the inside against Tinio, who's looking ever more scrappy with Antela at the wheel of that car. It was a bit nervous. Now Verheul comes up the inside of the BMW. I said the squabbles might come later in the race. In less than a lap's time, the squabbles have come now. So they're running together as the cars work their way now down towards the Dunlop curve. There's Verheul having to move up on the inside line, and he does it. He elbows his way past the BMW. Brave stuff by Jan Joris Verheul, who now can smell a win, so he doesn't want to get stuck then behind the BMW for too much longer. He's gone through, and Van der Ende is a bit crossed up in the background, so the cars work their way now up towards the Warsteiner S once again, and the race leader, somehow, Bertus Sanders, having of course been able to make that 3 wide move work, coming out of the last corner, but we've still got 17 3/4 minutes to go. So we're not done yet. A lot can still happen. I just wonder whether Van der Ende has got a bit of damage. He was elbowed out of the way, remember, by Jan-Joris Verheul down at the Dunlop curve, and he's not been able to fight back. And actually Verheul has dropped away, hasn't he, as well? So the Camaro here has fallen back, and the BMW even more so as the cars come through the chicane. So Bertus Sanders in the Porsche in what's turned out to be a really good race hangs on to the race lead ahead of Lorenzo Marcucci, who tries to shove his nose up the inside and right on his tail there. In third place is Salvador Tinio, 3 for the race lead as they come over the timing line now. Up into 4th has gone Van der Ende, down to 5th has fallen Verheul. Now, was that deliberate by Verheul to let him back through, having muscled his way past for fear of a penalty? Either way, it's now 2.8 seconds, first to 4th, and a really sideways Marcucci leaves the door open there for Salvador Tinio to have a go at him right round the outside. Marcucci on the inside line stands his ground and hangs on to the place as well as the cars work their way into turn 3. Bertus Sanders still has a chance of winning this race because it's becoming such a fierce fight between the two Ginettas. Right, no drive-through for car 27. Luca Magnoni's drive-through penalty has now disappeared, so that's all right then. Whatever the yellow flag infringement was, the officials have had another look at it and decided that it's not a problem after all. And so as the leading cars work their way for the 18th time down to the Dunlop curve, Porsche with a modest advantage at the moment. There you can see in second and third places the two pale blue Ginettas running together, and there is the man that did the first stint of the Porsche, Jörg Wiebahn, who will, with his fingers crossed, watch on as his co-driver Bertus Sanders tries now to extend this advantage over the opposition. So the cars come through the Warsteiner curve once again. Second and third, the longer they battle, the better this is going to be for the Porsche up front, because it's going to be able to extend that gap. 15 minutes and a bit remain, that is all. Goes up towards the Ad Van Bogen. Salvador Tinio looks like he's got the speed, and Van der Ende, look, he's coming back at them. So he did lose time when he was elbowed out of the way, and in the background the Camaros are side by side, because now you've got Duncan Houseman up alongside Jan-Joris Verheul. If they change, as they come through the sequence at the chicane, the answer is not yet. It is, sorry, they had changed, I'll tell you a lie. Houseman has got ahead, so it is Houseman ahead of Verheul. The leaders come through. This continues to build up very nicely indeed, because now 3.7 seconds covers the leading 5. Down towards turn 1 they go. Van der Ende or Houseman, still potential winners. They're running 4th and 5th at the moment. Wide there goes Lorenzo Marcucci. The BMW of Van der Ende still inching up onto the back of this little Ginetta pack. Ricardo Van der Ende, of course, a very successful single-seater racer in his youth, but as there, Marcucci makes a mistake. Up the inside comes Tinio. That's the outside for turn 4. Can't do it. Slots back in behind. Van der Ende, another of those light bulb drivers. Put him into anything, switch him on, and he delivers. The Ginettas side by side ahead of him. Up the inside, the position not quite. Salvador Tinio had a look, couldn't go through. And as the drivers now work their way downhill once again, we have the orange BMW running in 4th place, and Van der Ende is right there, looking now to try and get himself past those Ginettas. The trouble is, they're having such a fierce fight. What he doesn't want is to end up getting involved in somebody else's dramas. He's had one little skirmish with Jan-Joris Verheul, who's now fallen back a little bit. Uphill they go. You can see that although Bertus Sanders has an advantage, that's largely dependent on the Ginettas holding each other up behind. Here they come up towards the Warsteiner S's once again, and because for a couple of corners Lorenzo Marcucci has been able to attack rather than defend, so the gap against the Porsche comes down. Race leaders then head to the chicane again out of the Ad Van Bogen next corner. Ricardo Van der Ende inching up onto the back of them. Right, 13 minutes to go. He needs that scrap to continue, but the pace is there in the BMW. Duncan Houseman trying to join in as well. And the 6th position could also change, because Jan-Joris Verheul is being caught by Franvio Bugliotti, recovering after his first corner spin. The 3 leaders all bunch up, and a really sideways Lorenzo Marcucci there. He might have had a tag from Tinio, but Tinio goes ahead of him round the outside, coming out of the Coca-Cola curve. Van der Ende in 4th place now. He's just 1 second adrift of the race leader. The one to watch for the moment is the orange and white BMW. The Ginettas go side by side again at turn 1. up the inside and back into second place goes Lorenzo Marcucci. Out wide is forced Tinio, and Van der Ende wants to get past them, but because he knows exactly what they're up to, this mega battle between them, he doesn't want to get caught up in it, so he's got to really be careful. Turn 3, up the inside, tried to go Tinio, but the door was closed. Marcucci it is who hangs onto that second place, and the race leader tries to get away just a little bit more then. Downhill they go. Up front it is Bertus Sanders who leads the way. The yellow mirrored Ginetta is that of Lorenzo Marcucci, but look for third. Tinio has got Van der Ende now right on his tail. Cars sprint their way downhill once more. Second and third, nose to tail. There you can see 888, which is Tinio, who has fallen back behind Marcucci, and Van der Ende is being caught by Houseman. So, in his efforts to keep out of trouble, he's lost a couple of lengths, and now the Camaro is getting onto the back of the BMW. This is a proper endurance race, isn't it, with cars getting quicker and quicker as the race wears on, and more cars now coming into the equation for the race win. It could go down to any one of 5 yet, all together at the end. See how Van der Ende and Houseman have got themselves together. If they don't work together, they're going to lose touch. Houseman, looking the faster, wants to find a way through. His last lap was a 2.82, 2.86 from Van der Ende. So yes, the Camaro is quicker. They're getting themselves closer to the Ginettas once again. They do need to work together. The yellow mirrored Ginetta of Marcucci staves off the attack of Tinio. 11 minutes to go as the cars now head up towards the Coca-Cola curve. Van der Ende is really good through the chicane every lap, and he's back onto the tail of 888, and the smoke now look also coming out of Marcucci's car as he just leans on the weight a little bit coming through the final corner. I hesitate just to see whether or not he's going to be quick in a straight line. He's quick enough to fend off Tinio. Ricardo Van der Ende looks to the inside line, not able to make a move, or is he? Well, he thinks about it certainly, but not there, able to make a move up on the inside. 5th spot, Duncan Houseman. Can he get past Van der Ende, or is he prepared to let Van der Ende do the hard work and get through? Van Oranje started the BMW, Brahms started the Camaro. Van der Ende does go through for 3rd place. He gets ahead of Salvador Tinio, runs out wide, keeps his foot in even over the grass as he gets back on. And there you can see Tinio defending from a really committed Houseman. It's tougher work for the Camaro to get through, but he should have the inside line for the next corner. Yes, he does. Tinio gets sideways. So Van der Ende and Houseman are both through. They've got past one of the Ginettas. They are now running in 3rd and 4th places. 9 3/4 minutes to go. Downhill they come, working their way into the Dunlop curve. Van der Ende brakes as late as he dares, possibly outbrakes himself a little bit, goes deep into the corner, powers his way uphill. A great advert, this race, for the European GT4 Series, because it's got better and better and better as the race has gone on, hasn't it? And so, although we've lost a few through damage, what a race it's given us. The Camaro there riding the curve and getting sideways, the Ginetta likewise behind in the hands of Salvador Tinio. There's Van der Ende. Next target then is going to be Lorenzo Marcucci. The race leader is still Bertus Sanders, despite the fact that car hasn't really looked the quickest in many respects. It's always been just about to be gobbled up by the pack. The battles behind over the last few laps have really preserved its advantage. Bertus Sanders may not win the race yet, but he's doing his level best to hang on in there. We need to see what the gap is between him and Ricardo Van der Ende at the end of this lap. Van der Ende still looking menacing. There is Duncan Houseman, who is equally never to be discounted. Remember, he's won the Nurburgring 24 hours here on the Nordschleife, knows his way around both circuits very well indeed. The leading group comes through, and in fact, if you stretch this back now to Franville Bugliotti, who's on the rear of this group, it's 6 cars in a line, all for the race lead. What a race, what a race. So, up front, Bertus Sanders leads the way. Wide out of turn 1 goes Lorenzo Marcucci. Lights ablaze, Ricardo Van der Ende hustling on in the BMW. The surviving car in the race at Ekeris Motorsport. It may be the surviving car in the meeting from Ekeris Motorsport, you never know, depending on what's happened to the sister car. There is Van der Ende, ready to pounce against the Ginetta. He runs wide, uses all of the runoff. Very, very hard for people to police track limits there. So Van der Ende takes advantage, goes for the inside down towards the next corner, and he's on the inside line and he's through into second place. It's looking good for Van der Ende. It's looking good for Houseman because he's going with him as well. So Bertus Sanders in the Porsche leads now. The advantage is something like a second and a half. But now that Van der Ende has got clear road, he can bring that down. Houseman for third up on the inside. So now it's the three Pucker GT4 cars, first, second and third. And then in fourth place, Marcucci has got Tinio right up behind him. I still have a feeling that the best Ginetta come the end is going to be Franville Bugliotti, because he is driving like a man inspired. And there, to the inside line goes Tinio, but it's the white one behind that's the danger in this group, if you like. These two are so busy having their own private battle, they've almost ignored Franville Bugliotti, but they can't ignore him for much longer because he's right there now in the white Ginetta G50. The Argentinian Formula Renault turned touring car, now GT racer, Franville Bugliotti lines up perhaps for an attack on the run to the chicane. Salvador Tinio tries to attack the sister car ahead of him. Tinio has the inside line for the first element of the chicane. Does he go through? Yes, he does. Can he get away? Let's see. Really quick exit there. Straight away, Marcucci defends, but Franville Bugliotti goes to the inside line, up the curb. The Ginettas have been really active in this race, and Franville Bugliotti, helped a bit by the safety car after being tagged into that first corner spin, fights back, comes over the timing line, absolutely dead set level with the Ginetta in the hands there. You can see it, of Marcucci. So close were they, the timekeepers haven't really been able to separate because they came through. But as the leaders work their way now out of the Mercedes arena, up front it's Sanders then, ahead of Ricardo van der Ende. 1.4 seconds is the lead gap, 2.1 seconds covers first to third. And there is the third place car, the Camaro in the hands of Duncan Houseman. So now you start to look at sectors. Is Van der Ende closing to the eye? Yes. Is he closing quickly enough? 5.5 minutes to go before the end. The suspicion would be that yes, he can get up there before the very end of the race. There's Franville Bugliotti. Now what about him for third? It's a possibility. Bertus Sanders comes down now towards the right-hander, the Dunlop curve at the bottom of the hill, being chased still by the BMW. That's in the hands of Ricardo van der Ende. And there, with a bit of opposite lock being needed as he powers uphill, Duncan Houseman. These are the three that could win the race. Porsche, BMW or Chevrolet. In fourth place still is Salvador Tinio. And then fifth and sixth, now it is Franville Bugliotti ahead of Lorenzo Marcucci. The one that's dropped away, even though it was looking encouraging, Jan Joris Verheul, after he made that move up on the inside of Van der Ende, then dropped back and has lost a lot of ground. So Verheul has certainly fallen away. But Van der Ende look much closer now to Bertus Sanders. That gap continues to be nibbled away at. They're going to have about 2 more laps. Let's just see when they come over the timing line what the clock reckons. 4.5 minutes now, but something like a 2:09 is a good lap at the moment. So the BMW closing up all the time. Van der Ende is a quicker driver anyway than the man behind the wheel of the Porsche, Bertus Sanders. The pace is there. You've seen how he's dragged the car into contention. 4 minutes and 8 seconds remain. 2 more laps of the race then as they come over the line. It's looking now rather more like when, not if, there's a change for the race lead. Out of the Mercedes arena. The top 2 now as one. But the question is, how long is Van der Ende going to get stuck behind the Porsche, and is that going to bring Duncan Houseman back into the battle? On the power once again is Van der Ende as he sprints out of turn 4. Is he able to make a move? Well, now Bertus Sanders defends pretty vigorously. Van der Ende going to go around the outside. They almost touch. Sanders brakes late, slides his way there into turn 5 and 6, but he stays ahead. Down they come. For as long as Van der Ende is struggling to get through like this, look, you can see how much closer Duncan Houseman is getting in the Camaro. Downhill into the Dunlop curve. The 3 leaders, concertina up this time. Sanders it is in the Porsche leading. Ricardo van der Ende, 2nd spot in the BMW. Duncan Houseman 3rd. And Van der Ende, conscious of where Houseman is, wants to get past the Porsche and try and use that as a cushion between him and the opposition. But don't rule out Tinio in 4th place, because he's coming back at them in the blue Ginetta. Van der Ende does go to the inside line at the Warsteiner curve. Can't find a way through there, but it is looking ominous. But so too is Houseman's progress up the inside of Van der Ende for second place. Oh, so nearly made the move stick. Tinio, fourth, right with them as well. Berta Sanders doing everything he can to defend. Was there contact between the Chevrolet and the Ginetta? The smoke coming out of the front of Salvador Tinio's car. He has, by the look of it, a problem as the cars now work their way towards the chicane. Van der Ende ready to make his move now up the inside. Sanders tries to cover the line. He does cover the line. Round the outside goes Houseman. Which way does Van der Ende go? Is he stuck? No, he's got the inside line. Houseman has to back out of it. There's contact, and Van der Ende nearly speared up against the pit wall. Sanders being really aggressive, but they've left the door open for Houseman on the outside. The Chevrolet is going to breeze on past. He's done it, third to first. Sanders was so busy defending from Van der Ende, who's now at the inside anyway to get second. Wide and off the road has gone Houseman. Van der Ende leads, they almost touch again then. The BMW on the outside line, the Chevrolet on the inside through turn 2. Berta Sanders down into third place. Salvador Tinio in this pesky Ginetta won't go away. Houseman almost into the back of Van der Ende. Houseman really made his reputation in touring car BMWs. Now he's trying to beat one. It's still the BMW M3 then that leads the way. And now look at Franville Bugliotti. He joins in as well. I said Bugliotti for the podium was a possibility. Here he comes. We're on the last lap. Any one of these 5 could yet win. Arguably the man that's 6th could win if it all ends in tears. But as they work their way into the second half of the last lap, Ricardo van der Ende leads, but he's not home and dry, far from it, because Duncan Houseman, who has briefly led the race, is right there with him. Berta Sanders third, Tinio fourth, fifth, Franville Bugliotti. And coming uphill, where the extra grunt of the Camaro might help, will Houseman have a chance to get past the BMW? Look at Tinio lining up to have a go at Berta Sanders. He defends. Franville Bugliotti is right there with them as well. Ricardo van der Ende leads the way. Duncan Houseman, who had to drag this car from the low teens, he's had more work to do than van der Ende, runs right up behind him. Duncan Houseman sharing with Luc Brahms. Berta Sanders getting back onto the tail of the Chevrolet, look. As they slow coming out of the Warsteiner S's, so the Porsche buys back in. And what a finish it's going to be. 5 for the lead, 5 for the win through the Advanbogen. Van der Ende is going to have to make this car as wide as possible. Houseman goes one side, goes the other. Ricardo van der Ende leads into the chicane. He hangs on to it. We've got still 1 corner and 1 straight to go. Tinio attacks Sanders up on the inside in the Ginetta. The leaders are nose to tail. They turn through the last corner. Has Ricardo van der Ende done enough to win the first European GT4 Series race of the weekend? The answer is yes, he has. Ricardo van der Ende wins with Bernhard van Oranje. Second goes the way of Duncan Houseman and Luc Brahms. And for third, it is Jörg Wiebahn and Berta Sanders in the Porsche. Fourth, Salvador Tinio and Jesse Antela. And fifth, Franville Bugliotti. And the leading 5 came across the line, covered by 1.3 seconds after an hour of racing. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. A great advert for the series, that. GT4 cars, in many ways, as close to the good old production sports car days as you'll get, the entry-level GT category. And with a race like that, you still have to scratch your head and try and work out why more people won't come and do it. This is a Dutch-based championship, GT4 very popular in Holland, where it is also the category for the national championship. Another battle to be resolved here is for 9th place, because coming up towards the line, number 103, is the BMW of André de Vries to come through. Sorry, the BMW of Koen de Witt, so I should say, to come through. And he fends off the Rob Sever BMW behind. So, what a race. Ricardo van der Ende certainly worked hard for that. And it's one of those races where it's a shame there can't be more than one winner, because Duncan Houseman likewise drove a great race, didn't he? And fair play to Berta Sanders, who did everything he could, and the Ginetta drivers. Certainly Salvador Tinio. Lorenzo Marcucci ended up in the pit lane after that little bit of contact. He was delayed and slowed and then pitted. But some wonderful racing and some really, really good drives right the way through that order. So Ricardo van der Ende wins by 0.274 of a second. This is how they finished. 25 laps of racing done. Bernhard van Oranje and Ricardo van der Ende, the race winners, ahead of Luc Brahms and Duncan Houseman. Jörg Wiebahn and Berta Sanders third. Jesse Antela, Salvador Tinio fourth, ahead of Franville Bugliotti. And then to round out the top 6, Marcel Nuren and Jan-Joris Verheul. Roberto Gentili ahead of Eric Berggren and Thomas Fjordbach. Peter Stocks and Koen de Witt 9th, Luc Brahms Lisette Brahms and Rob Severs, 10th ahead of Andre Grammatico, and then the delayed Manuel Lasagni's Ginetta a lap down. So BMW, a really bittersweet race for the Eckeris Motorsport team, because there, as you look at those that didn't get to the end, you can see the car number 8 of Peter Christian van Oranje and Simon Knapp. That was eliminated early on in the race. So 1 out with damage, 1 scores a race win. And in the end, victory goes the way of Ricardo van der Ende and Bernhard van Oranje by just 0.274 of a second. A fantastic effort. And the win goes the way of the Dutch Royal, and Ricardo van der Ende still, for the most part, a much underrated driver, but he's underlined why he is required by many, and a job well done. Comes home victorious. So 1 more race for the European GT4 Series to come later in the day. For now, though, there is the scene from the pit lane as the cars make their way to Parc Fermé. Scrutineers will make sure that all is well with those cars. And as they do so, let's have a look back on this opening race of the weekend. The race got underway, of course, with the AMS doing the first stint, and there was drama right from the word go, even down to the first corner. It was particularly lively as Jörg Wiebahn dived through the traffic, but then there was contact, Franville Bugliotti being turned around, cars scattered, but the one that came off badly was Marcel van Rijswijk, who just clipped the Ginetta, and that did more damage to the BMW than it did to the British-built car, perversely. And so the BM was in the pits by the end of the opening lap. Franville Bugliotti did rejoin, but then we had this safety car-induced tangle between Peter Christian van Oranje and the Aston Martin in the hands of Eric Behrens. Behrens was a bit knocked about, the safety car brought into play, and on the restart, the AMS had only a few minutes before the pit window opened. Jesse Antela was busy battling with the Stefano Stefanelli-driven Ginetta. Wiebahn pitted right at the start of the window to give way to Bertus Sanders. The car ended up losing the lead to Stefan Retzlaff's Aston Martin, but that would soon end up not only in a battle but in the gravel as well when Hendrik Still had taken the car over. The two of them battle their way out of the Dunlop curve. This was the move that took the Aston out of the race. Hendrik Still tagged into a spin, tagged into the gravel, and out of the race. Big frustration for Stefan Retzlaff. Then we had this amazing move, 3 abreast into the last corner, 3 abreast in, 3 abreast out, but it was the Porsche that came up the inside to take the race lead. Bertus Sanders ahead of the 2 Ginettas, but ominously behind them, getting quicker and closer all the time, was Ricardo van der Ende. He tried to get past the Porsche for the lead. He was boxed in. Round the outside came Haussmann. He then had nowhere to go. Sanders biffed into the BMW. That let the Chevrolet through around the outside, but then, as van der Ende ran off the road at turn 1, as Haussmann lost the advantage, van der Ende ran through to score the race lead and to take the race win as well. A really hectic first race of the weekend for the European GT4 Series, and there is more to come later on in the day. For now, from David Anderson, we'll see you later on. Bye-bye.